Hello and welcome to The Created Economy. It's a weekly interview series where we chat with players from the creator economy at large and discuss the key topics impacting the growth of the industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ken Yeung, and I'm joined with my good friend, Gregarious Narain. You can find new episodes of our show on our website at createdeconomy.com or wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And if you want to be a guest on our show, feel free to check out our website. We have a nice little form for you to do that, createdeconomy.com/guest list. And if you like the show, give it a like and subscribe on YouTube. We're also at Created Economy everywhere on Twitter, on Flipboard, on LinkedIn, and of course on YouTube. And that being said, let's dive right into the show. Hey, Greg, how's it going?
Oh, feels like I've been talking all morning, which is I guess the norm in remote work days, but it feels more tiresome today than other days.
Yes, apparently you have to talk, when you wait, in life. I think that's a thing. You can't just go around not talking,
Yeah, I think it's my tooth that is just making it worse. I need to go get the oral surgeon soon. So
again, jeez, dude.
Yeah,
like it. But hey, this episode is actually going to be pretty relevant to you because, as many of our listeners or viewers may know, you have a dog, a Maltipoo named Rex. So
might be getting a rare moment here where
Corgi. Oh my God! Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we cut through our intro and let's welcome to the show Bryan Reisberg, and also his wonderful dog Maxine. A wonderful Corgi. Oh my God, yes. That made my day. Thank you.
I had to switch because I figure when else are we gonna? We may not get that moment again.
This is true. But a short introduction here. So we are joined by Bryan, who was a creative director and filmmaker. Now he's a pet influencer. You may not know him by name, but you certainly know his dog, his wonderful dog, fluffy dog, Maxine. She's wildly popular on social media. 3.7 million followers on TikTok.
Wow. This is the most famous entity we've had on the show.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And for those that know me, I have a very soft spot for corgis. Very much would like to have one. And
we've been over this. There's no reason you can't have one. Actually,
this is true. There's no.
You didn't do it. You're an adult. Just do it, man.
well, he's an adult actually, with his own place, right?
Now I can. Okay, now I can. Before I was renting, so I was not allowed one. I was not legally allowed one. So, but now I could.
There may be still some ethical questions left unresolved.
hey! We're not having that conversation on this show. But anyway, yeah. So besides being the dad for Maxine, Bryan is also the co-founder of a merchandise company called Little Chonk. Their first product is the Maxine One, a dog-friendly backpack. And so we're looking forward to talking to Bryan about his role as being a pet influencer, moving into merchandise, and what's next. So, Bryan, thank you so much for taking the time to humor me by bringing Maxine on the show, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
So, Bryan, what was your journey? I mean, you're a filmmaker by profession. And
yeah, so I went to film school at NYU.
I went to NYU.
Hey, there you go. Which school are you in?
CAS, Arts and Science. Yeah.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Yeah. I wasn't wild about it. I got out pretty early, so I took some courses, got out in 3 years. And when I graduated, was working at an ad agency called Mother as a day job on the production side. Started a production company with a producing partner, Andrew Corkin, who's now very successful indie film producer and TV producer, and wrote and directed my first feature 5 years later. That was at South by Southwest. That's where it premiered, played the festival circuit, released in theaters by Oscilloscope in 2015. And then 2015 was when my wife and I got married and then got Maxine. And the track was still, be a feature filmmaker. I was signed to a production company at the time, which was very fortunate because I could bring my dog to that office, and had an Instagram account probably 2 years before the big influencer boom of 2017, because it was just a fun creative outlet, because, the commercial work wasn't coming in. And then from 2015 to 2021, worked my way up to creative director in advertising while I had Maxine's account, built that. And yeah, I was doing it, living like a double life for 6 years, and then recently quit my day job October of 2021 to focus full time on being a creator and entrepreneur.
What was that spark, that kind of that point in time where you said, okay, I'm going to go all in and be a full-time creator? I mean, it's not as if you didn't have plenty of available content to you. I mean, Maxine is, yeah, you could just take the same photo of Maxine, post it up, and everyone would still, you would garner all the likes and fans. But what was it in general that you're like, you know what? I think this is the where I want to be. This is the business I want to go with.
It was there wasn't like a moment, but it was in the pandemic. It was when everything locked down, which like, hey, it was a remarkably shitty time for a lot of people. And my wife and I were at home, and there was so much uncertainty about the world and our health, the health of our loved ones. And so we just started making stuff. Because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know if I was going to get fired. I didn't know if we'd have to move. The same position as everybody was in, and all we had was Maxine and a platform. And there was a real sense of purpose for me in the pandemic to do what I could. It was, you're sitting at home and there's nothing to do. What can you do? And at the time, TikTok was just starting. And I remember there was an article on Vogue that came out at the beginning of the pandemic that was like, follow these 8 accounts for your mental well-being. It was like Yoko Ono, the Calm app, and Maxine, and there were 5 others.
Wow.
And I remember that article specifically, like something clicked where it was like, because we've gotten messages, so many messages throughout the years of people who would share how happy we made them or how we lifted them after a bad day. And people were really going through a lot of shit. You had COVID, you had the George Floyd protests. I mean, we were in Manhattan, and at the time it was fucking wild. Like, everything was boarded up. There were riots and protests outside of our front door. I mean, you had cops chasing. It was just absolute pandemonium, and really the only thing that I knew to do was just make fun shit and put it online. That's what we had, and I have a very close line of communication with our audience, and so I was getting an immediate feedback of what we were doing and how much people really seemed to need it. So every day, making new stuff on TikTok. What are the trends? How can we be a part of it? How can we join the conversation? How can we use our platform to maybe help some organizations that might need assistance, and try and do some surprising things? I'm very proud of the fact that we don't get a lot of hate on our account, because I think we really take our time to show the things that we care about and support. Usually accounts that might show support for a certain cause might be told to stay in their lane. That's kind of usually the messaging. But it was a weird time, but it was a time to really try and test some stuff out. And throughout that process, I started focusing on my day job less and less and less and less and less. And the only way I was able to do that was, as a filmmaker, I'm very quick at my skill set. I'm very quick to edit, to make decks, to write, to do the work that I needed to do to satisfy the company I work for. So I would spend about 2 hours on the shit I needed to get done that day, and then the rest of my day would be filled with Maxine and trying to do everything I could to grow faster, to reach more people, to do more surprising things. And so coming out of the pandemic, we got to a point where we were making money on her account, and I could leave my job. And I've done that before with filmmaking, and it's scary because I'm somebody who needs structure, and a paycheck. And I know people who have quit their jobs to do this full time, and I applaud them because it's not easy. It's not easy to go from to no risk creation and then changing to I need to make a bottom line every month to support my family. So that's why it took me so long to do it, because I wanted to be in a really comfortable place, and I never want to make out of fear. I love making shit. I mean, it's why I went to school. It's what I've always wanted to do. The money is what it's cool. It's not why I do it, but as long as we have enough to live, then we're good. So that's why in 2021, pretty recently is when I quit. And then also like the backpack company. That was something where I thought if I don't quit my job and focus every ounce of my energy on doing this right now, not gonna happen.
Yep. And we'll definitely dive into that more. Yeah, go ahead.
So recently we had Mark Bergen on the show. Actually, Ken actually had a question for him that I thought was really interesting. I'm kind of curious your take on it, Bryan. Because Ken, if you recall, you'd asked him kind of like, do you feel a lot of people feel like sometimes they work for the algorithm, right? Like, you know, I'm kind of curious. Does that resonate with you? Right? Like, is your creation not necessarily that you don't have creative control still, but is it still guided, you know, or influenced by the algorithm? Or do you feel like you've just sort of got your crew and you're able to sort of have the autonomy to just do whatever you think is right and you can persist, or is it something in between?
I don't work for the algorithm, but it's certainly debilitating from like a mental wellness standpoint, because you know, it's when you make something like the reason I love doing this versus being a filmmaker. Like I don't think I'm built to be a filmmaker, because when I do this, I have control over every aspect of what we're doing. Like it's just me. I shoot, I edit all of it because I like that control, because I know what I need to do to achieve a certain vision or something. But none of that fucking matters when you post it. You could just hit the wrong time of day. You could hit something, and you know, I'm a part of a few groups where like everybody talks about the same thing. Like you could work your ass off on something and you know that you're checking certain creative boxes that like this really should move. This should go viral. This should reach the audience. And there's so much that's out of your control. Not only is it out of your control, but it's secret. It's hidden. You have no idea. And it sucks. It's one of the parts about the job that I hate. And I hate the way it makes me feel, because if there's, you know, now that it's not just posting stuff for joy, it's posting stuff to like fuel a business and to like pay bills and shit, to feel that something. So it's wild. And it's the emotional side of it is something that I try and work on, because it can really mess with you.
Yeah.
You know, when you make something and it doesn't perform, and then, you know, it's not even like a day. Like there can be weeks, an on week or an off week. You know what I mean? Like we had a stretch of time last year that our account didn't grow that number didn't move for like 8 months.
Wow.
It was crazy. And I knew other people were going through some things, and it really just like, hey, shortly after that, we posted a video that like, I think it has over 13 million views on Instagram and over 1 million, you know, so it really is like, but it's really hard not to think that like, oh, is this it? Am I done? Is this the plateau?
Yeah. Every blogger has experienced this, you know, we're like, you know, yes, this is the post. Everyone's going to love this. It's 15,000 words and all these details and research. And then it's like some fart joke or something on Twitter that like gets like 4x your volume. Right. And
it's I don't, you know, it's, what are you supposed to do with that? I don't know. Some days my wife will literally come home and I'll just be like fucking melting in the couch playing FIFA. And she goes, "How was your day?" And I go, "Ugh." And it's not because you didn't make good work. It's not because, you know, it's like, it's just bullshit.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Is it? There's really no better. It's like, it's tantamount to nothing. And it's just, you got to just really work to keep things in perspective, you know, and just remember the things that are good and not get too bogged down by thinking like, oh, because I haven't had a post hit in a while, that I'm just like, this is the end. It's
So talk to us about how you tell a story, right? I mean, I think on one hand you have, if you're for human creators, it's like, okay, you can figure out what that narrative might be, like, oh, what am I going to do today, right? And I'm going to go film myself, you know, skiing out in the middle of nowhere, right? I don't know. But for when dealing with pets, it's you're kind of dealing with something that could be that's unpredictable at times.
Hmm.
So how do you approach being a creator with Maxine, and how do you develop those, a narrative, a story that you want to share with people, aside from, worrying about the algorithm?
Um, I think it's easier and harder with dogs. I think it's just a matter of what works for you. Like what has always worked for us has been how she fits into my life. So when I
Mhm.
had a job, I was riding the train every day, and there was that fit into the routine, and I would get reactions and all this stuff, and that's what would work. But now that there's no job, it's we partner with a lot of different companies, a lot of influencers in New York, or like another one who's in New York is New York Nico. He'll hit us up and be like, "Hey, I'm in the park," and I'm like, "Okay, let's just go hang out. We got nothing to do, and maybe something comes of it. Maybe something like I was at the bodega this morning, and the owner's son, Hazam, they are Muslim,
I
and
saw I saw that video.
yeah, and he wouldn't. The kid is the sweetest boy in the world, and he wouldn't touch Max. And I said, "He said you can pet her if you want." He goes, "No, I can't." And I didn't know that it was a rule in certain Islamic families that can't touch a dog because of the saliva. There's certain, I think it's different for different Muslim people. Um, and I was like, okay. So I had these gloves. I randomly bought these Sully gloves that Monsters Inc. And so I was like, I got an idea, and I only worn them once. They were pretty much new. I went home. I gave them to him, and he put his hands out, and Max was playing with them, and um, it's shit like that. It's just go out and experience the world. And we've gotten to a level where it's like she's so famous that that's kind of like she's famous for being famous kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so now there's a little bit more freedom in that because we don't that's we've we have our niche, right? Like she's the backpack dog and she's famous, and it's really we can go anywhere with that. Like I collaborated with a VFX artist who I said like, "Hey, we like Toy Story. Do you want to make Buzz and Woody ride Max?" We can do anything and make a story. Um, the other day she was watching Fantasia, and I spend a lot of time in the DMs and talking to people because that helps really inform like what I post. And that's also where I do a lot of like that's why I think our community is so loyal, is because I really do spend a lot of time, for better or for worse, on my fucking phone talking to these people. So I posted a clip of her watching Fantasia, and somebody was like, "Oh, you should get her a sorcerer's hat." So I posted the clip, and the caption was, "Should I get her a sorcerer's hat?" So now that kind of starts off a new narrative where I think, okay, maybe if I get a sorcerer's hat, maybe if I get a robe, I bought a book about how to be a sorcerer from some occult website, because now I'm just gonna get all the props and make a little video with a narration that says like, you know, uh, so a few days ago I saw Maxine watching Fantasia, and I'll just make a story and we'll see how it goes. So it's not a lot of planning, because I've tried to plan shit in the past where I like want her to do something, or I want to go do something, and it doesn't work out because she's a dog and she's going to do what she wants. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
every
noticed.
every day is different.
Yeah, I noticed. I saw there's a part, I think it was at the end of the day, where Maxine will run circles around the table, and then like midway, like after a few rotations, she like pivots and does a complete
Yeah.
180. And then you kind of did a series about that, right? And you said, oh, that you said you figured out why she does that, and you did this whole part where, I think it was like a family member's dog, right?
Yeah,
You took her.
my brother's dog. So that was like the how that came to be is like some days when I'm home alone and I got nothing to do, I need to keep working towards something. Otherwise, I'll get depressed. That so I dump my iPhone, like my iPhone fills up with footage pretty regularly, and I'll dump it. And then I'll go back into, I got like terabytes of footage. So sometimes I'll go look through my old iPhone and it's all clips of Maxine. And pretty frequently it's all the same shit. So if I go through it pretty quickly, I'll start to notice patterns. I'll start to notice that I have the same clip. And then like there was also a video of her sniffing butts at the dog park. That's because I went through 2 iPhones full of footage and I gathered I mean, it took hours. But like when you start to notice these patterns, you can start to find a story to tell. That's why it's like I feel very fortunate to have gone to film school, because these are just things that happen in the background, and it's hard to turn off, which sucks, but it's fun because you can just start to look at patterns and footage and start to write a script in your head and think like, okay, this could potentially be something, or maybe I can go film something here. And that's how a lot of our stuff happens. Very, very little of it is ever planned beforehand. It's, you make what you get.
Yep. Greg, any questions that you have to get Rex become a powerful influencer?
No, but I will go back to something you mentioned that I think is, well, look, every director has to work with hard talent, from what I understand, right? So, but I will go back to, I think something we were mentioning about the transition. I think that's something that's really important, and I'd love to double click on it a little bit more. There's this part of like going from like the love of the thing to the job of the thing, right? And that transition is what I think most creators are actually still at the precipice of, right? Like they either haven't seen or gotten enough validation, like, yes, I should make the leap into it. But even more problematic, I think, is the folks who make the leap but don't prepare for it, right? I'm kind of curious, are there any tips you have for creators, like, any must-haves, make sure you do this, or, things to watch out for, or don't worry about, like, as you made that transition, like that you now might want to give back to like other creators about like, becoming full-time or going that part-time route, even say?
I don't have solutions, because I haven't.
I don't think there's a universal. I think all this is.
I don't have any solutions. I just know that the mindset is so different. Unless you really don't, unless you're rich and you don't have any concerns. Well, I guess let me start with what I was doing. So money, we're not rich. We're not even close to rich. So obviously money is a concern, but also the higher you go, the harder it gets, because I'm a really ambitious person. So as we started to get bigger, my mindset started to change from like, oh, I can just be somebody who does this. I can just be another member, to my mindset is now at the place where it's like, there is nobody else who can do this but me. And what I'm talking about is what your goals are. And my goal right now is we are going to build the Nike for the pet industry. That's what we're staring at. That's what we talk about. That's what we're planning for. That's what we have the momentum to do. And so as you transition over, I took a really hard look at, okay, what do I want out of this? What are my goals? Because if you're not thinking ahead, it's going to be very difficult to find success, because I talk about this with a few other creators who have been doing this for a long time. It is very much a marathon. I've been doing this for 6 years. And the problem right now is that there are so many creators, because of what TikTok has done. I think it's great that they've changed people's lives, TikTok. It's fantastic. There are downsides to that. And the downsides are that if you are not prepared to weather the many storms that you will encounter in your career as a creator, it might not be the right job for you, because from month to month, you have things that people know you for, especially on TikTok. And you're going to have a hard time. And what I found, breaking out of that niche, or making different kinds of content, or evolving. And so we see a lot of these creators, they blow up fast, and it's like a candle in the wind, unless you know how you can evolve as a creator and start taking your shit to the next level. And I don't mean just making different things, but how can you be somebody that is that the audience can rely on, can depend on, can be comfortable with? And how can you provide consistent, measurable value to people's lives? So if you're looking at this, I have a really hard time not planning ahead. So when I thought about this, I thought, okay, at this stage is going to end at some point. I need to start building a foundation for a future. And what do I want that future to be? And right now, what we're thinking is we want that future to be being in a place to completely change the pet industry for the better for the future. And it's a big it's a big thing. It's a big thing to think about. It's a big thing to say. So as you get bigger, it's just important to keep thinking about what the next step is and how you're going to take this incredible opportunity, which I'm I get to be like a full-time dog. Like that's fucking crazy. I get to just chill with my dog all the time, right? And there's going to come a time where that ends. So what's the next thing? What's all this for? Why put out the content? Why talk to people about pets? Why engage with the community? So I guess to answer your question, the transition, do not mistake a sprint for a marathon. There's going to be incredible highs and just like real shitty lows. And especially to what you're talking about with the algorithm. It's like any job. Like I posted something the other day where somebody came up to us in the coffee shop and said, I've been following you for a long time. And like, wow, what you do looks really exhausting. I thought I've never had somebody say that to me. And I appreciated that because it is any job, and any job is exhausting, but it is still a job. Like, when we get paid to go places to like a hotel, like, oh, that's nice. You get paid to go to a hotel. Well, no, because I want to make sure that coming from an advertising background, I'm also trying to do right by the person who hires me. I'm trying to find the opportunity where I can have a video go viral so that I can email them and be like, hey, check this out. And they're like, oh my God, that's great. This relationship was so worth it. I either want to do it again or I will go hire another influencer. You want to be a good steward for the community. And so there's pressure. And, we were always somebody who, when we get hired to do ads, it's stressful because you want to make something good. I'm not just going to throw up a picture. So we only do stuff that we really care about or that we can tell a really good story with. And if it doesn't perform, then, yeah, it sucks to not have something perform, but I also feel bad that these folks hired me, this company put this budget in here and it didn't work the way, because I think the better we do, the better it is for everybody else, rising tides and all that.
Yeah. So let's talk about your new venture here. Well, that newish venture, a little chunk. Was that you kind of alluded to that earlier in beginning of this conversation, but which came first? Was it the content creation for Maxine or was it the little chunk backpack? Because I know the history behind why you created Little Chunk, and maybe you can elaborate more on that. You as you were with when you're riding in the New York subway, there's a policy where dogs or pets need to be in bags. Is that's correct, right? And
Yeah.
so you were looking for a better way to transport Maxine, and so that was how the Maxine One came about. Is there, but did one come before the other? Like, were you a content creator for Maxine and then that spurred the backpack, or did you work on a
So
backpack
yeah,
and
so there was the rule. I first started carrying her in tote bags. She got too big. I went to a shop. I found this backpack, and it seemed like a fine way to carry her. And I wasn't really into the quality of the product or the ergonomics. It was very hard to use. Kind of hurt my back, but it helped us grow. Videos were going through the roof, and nobody had ever seen this before. This was back in like 2017, 2018. Nobody had seen a dog backpack, let alone like a fluffy corgi. So we kept using it. And, we would talk to people about it. And I found it really difficult to actually recommend the product to people because to carry that weight on your back, we were doing it. Nobody in the world has carried their dog in a backpack more than me. I was doing it at least 2 times a day for years. And it got to the point where I thought, like, if I can't recommend this to people, I'm now in a position where I can actually build something that I feel has been completely missing from not just the pet industry, but to maybe even start a company that has been non-existent in the pet industry. There's no brand loyalty, and these companies are making garbage products that aren't really well thought out. I don't know who's making them, and I don't know what kind of concern they have about what they are making. So I teamed up with my co-founder and basically said, "This is what we need to build. This is how we need to do it, and this is the kind of brand that we need to be because it doesn't exist." And when I was a filmmaker, and you're trying to like find every opportunity to be successful, and you write a screenplay, there's a lot of people out there who will submit it to what's called the Sundance Labs. Sundance Film Festival has these labs where they will receive submissions for scripts, whether it's a script, a director, or a producer, and they will help shepherd that project. And it's like, a badge of honor to go through this very prestigious thing. And in the application, they asked a question: why are you the one to tell this story, and why now? And I always had the hardest time answering that question because to make a film, I want, I want to make a film. I want to be creative. I want to do this thing that felt really romantic. I wasn't in a position to bleed for whatever I was telling. I didn't have something to say. With what we're doing at Little Chunk, with how we're making these products, and with the reason why, I'm, for the first time in my life, feel that I can do a better job than the guy sitting next to me. Undoubtedly. I know the customer. I know the market. I know what the product needs, and nobody's used it more than me. 10,000 hours, try like 50,000. I actually calculated it, 65,000 hours of nonstop use of a backpack, of thinking about pets, about thinking about the well-being of our pets, about thinking about the customers. I'm an incredibly empathetic person. So when I have people talking to me about what they're missing in their life, what their dog is missing, what they wish they had, that affects me because I feel the same way. And we spent a long time on this product. We delayed production by 6 weeks for certain buckles, for certain top of the line hardware. We really didn't cut any corners. And we spent a long time talking to people about it so that when I took the password off the website on December 15th, Maxine's 6th birthday on December 15th, 2021, at 10 a.m., I took the password off the website. We sold out in 4 minutes. I mean, wow. It was crazy. The number just dropped. Did we know that was going to happen? Absolutely not. But we knew immediately that, okay, we're on to something. And then when people actually started getting the product, I think was really free. It's crazy that some of the messages we've gotten from people. Like there's a woman a few weeks ago who sent us a message. I mean, wall of text in a DM. And she said, my dog has DM, which is a degenerative disorder. Don't know how long the dog has left. And she sent pictures. She went on a hike with her dog, and she had a photographer come and take pictures, and she sent them to me. She said it was great, and that she's never been able to do that with her dog before in a safe way. And a few days later, the dog passed away. So,
I mean, I hear a lot of good things about the Maxine One. I actually, I was having dinner with a friend who has a Corgi as well, and just like when I had booked, she knew I was doing this. I was doing this podcast, and then I was talking to her. I'm like, hey, yeah, do you guys carry around this Corgi? Because there's times where they take the Corgi out. They live in Boston. Yeah. And the Corgi will just like says, all right, screw it, I'm not walking anymore. And so my friend has to carry the Corgi back to the house. The Corgi's not as big as Maxine, but the dog is certainly heavy, and they have to go upstairs. So I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about like the Little Chunk backpack or anything? I'm like, well, hello, Corgi, and she's like, yeah, but they're all sold out. I can't get one. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, just saying, oh yeah. By the way, I'm actually talking to Bryan on this, about this. So, there are a lot of people that know about your backpack. So it's very, very interesting to see to hear the success that this backpack has and how much it resonates with people. And on that front, I want to kind of dive deeper into something you mentioned, this phrase you mentioned earlier, that you want to be the Nike for pets. You know, the pet apparel, pet merchandise. What's next beyond the Maxine One? I'm assuming if we're going to keep with the traditions of you know the Kevin Durant's and the Jordans and everything, like there's going to be a Maxine 2 and a Maxine 3. What else is planned, or have you thought about in your roadmap?
So when I say, to clarify, so when I say the Nike for the pet industry, there's a few reasons why we say that. When Phil Knight, back in the early aughts, running was a very niche thing to do. It was weird. And this was a brand he built on a product, the Cortez. Mm-hmm. So what they did was they had the product that allowed you to experience something a certain way. And that's very much how we think about not just the Maxine One, but any product now or in the future that we make. The product is only there to help you maximize an experience or get an experience that you haven't previously had. And when we think about our products, down the line, we're looking at retail. And when we think about retail, we've had these discussions. We're not thinking about, and this is how we're thinking about pet companies and what they're not doing. And kind of the mark that they're missing is we're not thinking about Chewy's or Petco's or PetSmarts. We're thinking about Dick's Sporting Goods. We're thinking about REI. We're thinking about the human component to your pets, which is very important. It's about the bond you share with your pets. It's about the life you share with your pet. So that's kind of where the Nike for the pet industry came from. But it's also because Nike engenders a specific loyalty in their customers and the people that follow them. And right now, you'll see all these people with all these different products. Very frequently, they can't name the brand. They have no loyalty to the brand. Like I spent months trying to find a right car seat when we got a car 2 years ago, and I bought it from some random company on Amazon called A4 Pet Products, and it's just I'm gobsmacked that nobody has sat down to look at a product and think, okay, how do people use this? What do they want out of this? What do they need out of this? And what do their pets need out of this? And so right now we're starting with the Maxine One. There will absolutely be a Maxine 2. We already have an updated bag planned for the fall based on customer feedback. And we're planning on next year an even smaller pack for smaller dogs, a hiking backpack for larger dogs. And then we're going to start to build equity in different spaces. We're not the kind of company that's going to start coming out with random products. There really has to be a need for it. And we want to come from a place of safety, of quality, of expertise. So as we think about our product roadmap, it's going to take us a little bit of time to get there. But, a lot of what we're doing isn't just product based. A lot of it is community based. A lot of it is brand based. Because again, like what I said with being a creator, same thing with a brand. We're in it for a marathon, not a sprint, because we're also looking down the line at what, especially from the point of view of bigger businesses and VCs, like what do they think about what we're doing? And I really think that what we're building is building an undeniable, defensible brand with a very organic creator at the center of it. And ultimately, when you leave your home, no matter what you do with your dog, Little Chunk will be there to give you some resource, whether it's a product, whether it's an experience, could be a meetup, it could be really anything. That's kind of how we're thinking about things. Because I think the whole fucking pet industry is a white space, all of it.
Greg, any other questions you have for Bryan?
Well, no, I really appreciate the story, and I think I think building a brand is a very difficult challenge. I think there's an interesting thing, I think, with the creator brand overlap, right? Because to me, like there's a lot of like professional definitions of brands, but to me, a brand is only the thing that comes back from people when they talk about you, right?
I love that.
And I feel like creators are much closer to that idea than traditional brands are, because traditional brands tend to posture so much to try to emulate this idea that they want to have in the world, right? And I think like what's really great is like about what you're describing is how it short circuits like product development and marketing and all these other pieces into sort of a contiguous, self-fulfilling cycle almost, right? I guess when you think about moving forward, right, in the product lines itself, how do you imagine the community, I guess, and that ecosystem being part of that journey with you, right? Because like the Maxine One is obviously a brilliant idea, sort of obviously born out of like actual experience and things that were happening. What's that feedback loop now, right? I think as you think about the next product, right? Like, because I think this community blended model is like a way, like a thing for the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I'm kind of curious your take on new ways you maybe you're thinking about experimenting or et cetera, like with your community, your ecosystem, your audience, right? Like to actually bring new products to fore as well.
Yeah. A lot of it is in the DMs. That's where we get a lot of ideas, where we hear from people who are constantly commenting, like, when are you going to do this? When are you going to make this dog backpack? When are you going to, all this other stuff. But even as we go through development, at every point where there's an opportunity to share it with people, we do that. So even before we finished the final prototype for the Maxine One, we did a meet and greet at Tailgate in Brooklyn, which is a big outdoor bar. And we said, bring your dogs. We'll have these backpacks. And we hadn't shown the backpacks yet. So we're very aware of breadcrumbing people so as to maybe incentivize them to be a part of some of these experiences. And we had people try on the backpacks, and, we were measuring dogs and trying, because the crazy thing about pets, there are hundreds of breeds, and there are no consistencies between like the girth of a dog and the length of a dog. So sizing is easily the biggest problem. So how do you make a product that's can fit the most people? So at every stage, we're talking to customers, giving them opportunities to maybe try something on. And even in the design phase, we kind of just gather a lot of what we've seen online or anecdotally from other people, and try and think like, okay, what's the next step of this? Like we've seen certain products that feel gimmicky, that might have made a company a lot of money because they went viral. What about that product do people like? How can we improve and put some of those things into ours? Like whether it's like different water bottles, or I think it's just keeping on top of trends and how people in different parts of the world are doing things with their dogs. And you're looking at that and you're thinking, okay, well, with that, they're using this product, but why does that product not really hit the mark? Well, because somebody hasn't really thought about every step of the experience, and how can we take some of those insights? I mean, our biggest resource, again, the community, and just all these viral, all the content that goes out there. And you kind of get your finger on the pulse, maybe not explicitly, but kind of implicitly, about how can you take something that people love and turn it from a want into a need. And how can you kind of forecast the way people feel about pets? I mean, I think we've also gotten really lucky. Ever since we got Maxine, from day one, I would die for this dog. I'll do anything to find the best, and to find something that can give me assurance that I'm taking good care of her. And I know it seems weird to say, but I think from a global perspective, we were very early to that trend, and we've kind of grown with it now that we've seen, like, I just saw this Forbes article that, like, I know it's a coastal thing, but people in New York, Pennsylvania, I think it's New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, California, Washington, 55% of people have spent more on their pets than their significant others. And I think that's only going to keep growing.
I look, now that I have a dog, I understand entirely. I had no idea that this was a thing. I have a child also, by the way, but, and I just didn't imagine you could care about like another thing like as much as you care about your child. I think it's very spot on too. Like with the trend line, honestly, you're not wrong, man. I remember I was on vacation like a couple of weeks ago with some friends, and we were both parent dads talking, and we were actually saying how like some of us almost felt guilty for bringing a kid into this world with the future that, maybe in front of us and all these other things. And a pet, sadly has a shorter life, but also maybe that's the right amount of life, right? Like in the world that we live in sometimes. So I really like this. And I think like the thing that I think most people they take for granted is a community built product comes with a lot of grace and forgiveness in it, right? Compared to like a postured, produced, sort of stylized thing that is supposed to be, like good for something, right? Like, but dreamt up in a lab, right? Like just by a bunch of focus groups or something.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said. Really kind of at the core of all of this is time. It's just time.
Yeah.
Like, I remember another influencer on the birthday of their dog said, this really isn't like a happy day for me. And I get it. So how can we help you maximize the very short window that you have with these pets? Because it's the shit they do for us physically, emotionally, just spiritually. Why don't we have products for these creatures that are at the same level or better than what we're doing for other humans?
It's so fun. It's so funny you say that. My son, the other day, he was like, well, when I'm 25, I'm going to do this with Rex. And I was like, we were trying to like explain to him that Rexy won't be here probably then. Right. Like, and it was like very poignant, right? Like because you kind of know it's coming. Right.
Yeah. Every day,
Mm-hmm.
every day. It's just a reminder that it's running out, which is a really sad thought and really more than try and push it away. But,
well, why don't we end on a little bit of a happier note?
Let's go shopping for Ken's dog right now.
Well, I did. Yes, yeah. Let's go. What place where I can pick up a corgi? In the Pacific area. I mean, sure, why not? I'd be more than happy to entertain that conversation. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us, Greg and I, on the Creative Economy podcast. As I mentioned to you earlier, I really appreciate you sharing Maxine with the world. I follow her on Instagram and TikTok, and it certainly brightens my day every time I see that. After scrolling through countless stories, you're like, okay, this is absolute garbage. I don't really care. This is all political, blah blah blah. And all of a sudden, you see this corgi butt getting groomed. You're like, oh hey, okay, cool. That great. This really brightens up my day. So
that means a lot. Thank
you for that. And congratulations on the success of the Maxine One. Looking forward to seeing what's next for Little Chunk. And for those that are interested, if you want to follow Maxine, go on TikTok and Instagram to @MadMax_Fluffy Road. You can also find more about the Maxine One backpack at littlechunk.com. And if you're not watching this, oh my God, Maxine's back on the screen one more time with her diva pose. Make sure she gets her time barking at Patty. We'll need to come back. You'll need to come back and tell us more about that story. But
would love to.
All right. Well,
Wonderful.
Thanks everyone.
Bye,
thank you, Bryan. Thank you,
Thanks,
Maxine.
guys.
We'll talk to you later.
Pleasure. Have a good one.
All right. You too. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks, Greg. Look, Greg, I can't wait for you to, launch that Rex Instagram account for us, so we can follow and you can become a huge success as a pet influencer. So.
Excellent. We will do our best.
All right. And with that, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in for another episode of the Creative Economy Podcast. We will be back with more guests. Check out more information on our website at creativeeconomy.com. Talk to you guys later.